I know Rob well.
Do you hear me? No, maybe I
Yes.
lost you.
No, no,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
still hear you.
We'll get started in a second here, folks. Okay, folks, it's 6:30. We'll go ahead and get rolling. This is being recorded, just to remind everyone. First and foremost, can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
And I need a second.
Second to vote.
That's okay, that's agreed to. And can I get a motion to approve the previous, right, let me clarify, any amendments to the previous meeting's minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve. I need a second.
Second.
Okay, that's agreed to. We'll go ahead and get rolling here. First and foremost, I see we have, she just waltzed away from her camera, but Miss Naomi Grunditz from the City Council's office. So if you would like to speak real quick, go ahead, Naomi.
Thanks, everybody. Great to see you. I'll make it brief. There are a bunch of open positions in boards and commissions in the city. If you know anybody who's interested in land use, building codes, things like that, there's the Building Code Board of Appeals position open, and there's also a position open on the planning board. So both of those boards want to have a good mix of people, so you don't necessarily need to have super technical knowledge of the building code or the zoning code. In fact, there is a requirement that they have at least one sort of general community member, and actually 2 general community members on the building code appeals board. So links to figure out how to apply for that is in the slide deck. I'll also give a shout out with redistricting. I think we're all, I'll say for myself, I'm very happy that we still have Sunnyside in District 1. Thanks. So that actually went, redistricting passed pretty smoothly. And I think we're all also happy to have that process over. It was a lot. The other major thing to keep an eye on right now is the expanding housing affordability policy, which is advancing towards council. I would highly suggest going to the website that's linked on the landing page in this document. There's actually a really useful 2-page summary of what is in the proposal, but to summarize it very, very high level and quickly, this is a policy that Denver's convened a stakeholder group to analyze over the past year the ability to now require affordable housing in new development in the city. There was a state level action that happened that actually enabled that. It was not possible before. So the proposal just went to planning board and had some good comments there. And it's about to be heard at the Land Use, Transportation and Infrastructure Committee next week. So if you want to tune into that, it's on Tuesday at normally 10:30, and there's recordings of it as well. That's not a public hearing, but there should be some good discussion. And then I believe that the final hearing is scheduled for June, and that will be a public hearing. And I'm sorry, I don't have the date with me right now. Yeah, it's really interesting. There's going to basically be a requirement to provide a certain percentage of units at an affordable rate in all new residential developments over 10 units. In any other type of new development that doesn't fall into that bucket, there will be requirements to pay a linkage fee. There's actually a current linkage fee, but this proposal is going to raise it considerably. So ensuring that all new development contributes in some way to either providing actual affordable housing, or that fee money goes into an affordable housing fund that the city specifically uses to create housing. And yes, thank you, Bobby. This is the 2-pager. It's a lot of tables. You might need to read it a couple of times, but it's a pretty good overview of what's being proposed. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but if anyone has any quick questions about this one, I might be able to answer.
Any questions for Naomi? Please raise your digital hand so you can pop up to the top and we can see you. I don't see anything, Naomi.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving along, the next thing, building Denver visions of the capital city. So I forget who referred this to us, but there's a really great exhibit going on right now at the History Museum. It's linked in the agenda there, in downtown Denver, discussing the interstate system in Denver and how that's kind of divided communities and created islands, and just kind of all the background behind that going back years. For someone like myself, who's younger, I've never really known a world before interstates, but that definitely was the case here in Denver. I went down and I saw the exhibit. It's pretty great, considering, there's a lot of money going around right now with the infrastructure bill. Some cities are deciding to take down interstates or remove parts of them. That could be very well a possibility. That was a discussion with the I-70 East project. So that'd just be a good background for people to have. And it's linked into the agenda there. Moving along from that, I'm gonna open this hyperlink actually. The developer for Fox Park is gonna have three meetings. It's linked here in the agenda, dates, times, and everything, to discuss in the 41st and Fox Next Step study. Dottie and basically the city council required some sort of connection improvement to Fox Island, whether that be roads, bridges, multimodal, just pedestrian, or what have you. So the developer, along with, I believe, their consultant, is going to be having these public meetings. I'm going to be there. I know some others are going to be there. But one of the proposed ideas is connections to Sunnyside at about 47th Street. I know Pete Giovanni's been involved in that. So we really would like people to go there to make their voice heard and to kind of get the whole background of what's going on. That's that. The Sunnyside meetings for the Near Northwest Area Plan are also coming up. It's linked into the agenda here pretty soon. So Troop D, do you want to speak to this at all?
No, just that, you've got those dates right there. The 28th is virtually, is that backwards? And a drop in person is on the 27th, that's Smedley. And also, if you go to their website, and I put it in there, and everywhere, all of the various focus areas have surveys. These are the things that they had meetings around, and they've asked community and asked steering committee, but also these surveys are available online for you to take at your own time. So on any of those, whether it's a transportation, or if it's a quality of life or built environment, whatever's of interest or all of it, please take the survey. If you have not attended these meetings, can attend these meetings, but you want to make sure your voice is heard, or if you have any specific comments in what you've seen so far. So the link's in the chat. Thanks.
Okay, and then we also got notified that the Denver Excise and License, a subgroup of that, which is the Short-Term Rental Advisory Committee, which this is your Airbnbs, vacation by rental owner, vacation rental by owner, Vrbo, all those sites, the group that kind of oversees that and then makes recommendations to city council. That group is accepting applications. That's been a hot button item in recent years in Denver. So if you're interested in that, please look into that. They are looking for people to join that group, and it's linked into the application is linked into the agenda right there. Okay, with that, any other reports or quick updates I forgot from any members of the committee? Okay, well, we will move right along then. Our first review item, and I don't see, is there anyone here representing Mr. Billy Wang or Sophium Development?
Do you think it's because we might be a little early? We could jump onto the next item or something and come back to it.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, we'll move around a little bit here just for the sake of time, so we're not excluding someone. So we'll go to unfinished business, which is we're not really going to take any votes or anything here with this one, but we just wanted to kind of provide an update. So as we discussed a lot at our last meeting, the land use committee here is developing bylaws to kind of solidify what we're doing, make clear to the community, to developers, to decision makers, how this body operates, why we make the decisions we do, what our criteria are for making decisions, and also who is on the committee, why they're on the committee, how they get on the committee, how they get off of it, just to make everything clear and fair, and so that we're following Robert's rules, things of that nature. So we're not going to read word for word the bylaws, but they are hyperlinked there into the agenda. We also have a comment period that's open right now. It's been open for about 2 weeks. We're going to keep it open even longer, and then review things at our next meeting in May. So please take a look at those bylaws and share your thoughts and feedback with us. Let us know if there's something we haven't thought of or that we should think of, or anything like that. Tripti, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. We were talking about sending this out more globally, and I apologize if I didn't see this, but have we sent this out to the community in, either through our Facebook or newsletter or Nextdoor, just to get more people to look at it possibly?
So we've sent it out to our land use distro, which is, I forget how many people are on that, 50 or 70, something like that. But yeah, but we can put it on our Facebook and everything as well. Send it out to, and we can put it on, what's it, Nextdoor or those venues as well for people to comment. Nothing's private about this, and we'll accept any comments. Yeah, we'll share that far and wide. And we're going to continue taking comment basically for another month until the next meeting. And I'd also just right now, if there's anyone who would like to make any oral comments, we'll accept those as well.
Thank you, Robbie.
No, not seeing anything. Okay, did any members of the committee want to say anything about the bylaws? We kind of already had this conversation at the last meeting, so it's just, we're kind of just doing our due diligence of two rounds of discussion here. Okay, well, with that, we're at 6:43 here. I don't want to get ahead of schedule. I see Mr. Vogelsang and Colton here. Would that group be prepared to? I don't know if you guys had anything visuals or anything, but were you ready to speak? Chris and Paige.
Can you hear me? I'm Paige Colton, City and County of Denver, Department of Transportation.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Chris, are you there? You might have stepped away from
Yeah, I'm here. Oh. I had somebody ring my doorbell just right then, so sorry about that, everybody. I'm Chris Vogelsang, Paige Colton. Thanks for covering for me for a second, and thanks for having us. Is it okay? Do I have permission to share my screen?
Sure, absolutely. Give me 1 second.
It's Vogelsang Computer is where I'd be sharing from.
Go ahead.
Awesome. Okay. I will watch I do the whole like phone computer thing. It's very fun. It's good to see everybody again, by the way. Okay, so what I'm here to speak about tonight is I'll just give you an update on the Northwest Community Transportation Network project. If you remember, we've been working on this for about 2 years, meeting with the community, doing things, and it's been a little quiet for probably about 9 months, I think. And then we're here to just kind of get you caught up again and share some information. So tonight, I'm going to use my time to give you just a reminder about what the program is. Then I want to talk about bikeway network updates. Specifically, I think Tejon is probably the main focus of that. Talk about a curbside access plan program that Dottie Curbside and Parking is entering into that you may already be aware of, but I want to make sure everybody is, and then we can chat. And this would be pretty, if you have a question, just interrupt me or I'll try to watch. You can raise your hand and we can just kind of treat it like that, okay? Okay, so just as a reminder, community transportation networks are kind of big areas of the city. And right now the city's working on 3. We're in the Northwest area, but Central and South Central are ongoing at the same time. The idea is to kind of do a surge implementation of a lot of infrastructure in a short period of time so that we can change travel behavior and improve safety all at once, right? Rather than one corridor at a time. So that's what we've been working on. The goals, I'd say number 1 goal is to make it safer. Safer for everyone to choose other modes of travel and safer for cars too, just safer. And then to provide modal choices to people, right? So people can make real choices on high comfort facilities that they feel safe using. Another quick reminder. So we have been doing this for a while. I just want to remind everybody, we really have been trying to engage the community. If you all feel like we haven't been engaged enough or talking to you enough, let us know. We've really been trying. We have had 4 public meetings. We have a stakeholder working group that's met now 6 times that Tripti is on actually from this group. Bunch of R&O meetings and focus groups and corridor tours. So happy to chat anytime. Okay, so the next 3 slides are about what the world looks like today, what it's going to look like over the next year, and kind of what the full build out looks like. So you guys are well aware of this. So 46 got installed from Federal East, and then it kind of pops down and into Fox Park, which you guys were just talking about there. We also implemented North Zuni and then up in the Northwest 50th. So there's kind of, and Byron Place, sorry, up here by Sloan's Lake down here. So, you know, it's kind of a slow rollout, but like the planning into design into implementation. What you're going to see in the next year is significant change. So the highlighted networks here, and I'll talk about Lowell and Tejon specifically a little bit, but the highlighted dashed lines here are ones we plan to install in about the next year-ish through 2022, 2023. Ones of interest for you, I think, are Tejon, which I'll discuss. 40th, of course, comes through the neighborhood, and then just general mobility around the Northwest area that connects you into downtown and to other parts of the city. So we'll start seeing these changes very quickly. And then we had 2 corridors. If you've been involved, you'll know there were 2 corridors that generated quite a bit of discussion and gave us sort of a reason to just pause for a little bit, kind of gather some more data, have some more discussions, think them through a little bit more. And those were Lowell Boulevard up here from 46 to Regis by Rocky Mountain Lake Park. And then Tejon Street, right? From basically, we were focused on 32nd up to 46, but also the little piece that connects down to I-25 and the bridge. So the status of those, I'll start with Lowell and then I have better slides for Tejon. So on Lowell, we went and re-looked at all the input we had received, looked at some data, talked with our area engineers and the traffic people, and kind of thought it through. And where we ended up, the community had an idea to relocate part of the route from I-70 to the north, 1 block to the west, to a street called Mead Street. And the reason for that was, number 1, they were worried that there wasn't really enough width north of 50th to do protected bike lanes, which is what our data chart showed we needed. that it was only a 32-foot curb to curb section, and that's just not enough for 2 lanes and the protected lanes. They were worried about how it tied up to the Clear Creek Trail. So once we get out of Denver into Adams County, we just kind of ended, and people were on their own for those last few blocks, which made people nervous. And then also the curbside impacts. There's some businesses there that were pretty worried about the viability of their businesses. So we took all that together, did a new route where we come up Lowell from 46th under I-70. We go west 1 block and then north up to the Adams County border and connect to the Clear Creek Trail. We've presented that to the stakeholder working group and some folks in the neighborhood. Seems like it's been positively accepted in general. So that's Lowell. Tejon, I'm going to talk about a little more right now. So if you remember, Tejon, one of our key goals was safe and comfortable north-south connections in Sunnyside and Highlands to Tejon Street retail nodes and complete the network. And you can see we kind of looked at this. It's like 1.2 miles. It's pretty far between north-south connections in this area. And so we need something to make this work and to meet our goals. Tejon was the one that was identified in Denver Moves. And so that's what we started with and started moving forward with, right? So this is kind of the history of Tejon. Denver Public Works installed a bike lane south of 32nd and shared lanes, right? You guys ride these, I'm sure, see them all the time. Denver Moves proposed upgrading that to a protected bike lane. We went and looked at that and found that from a design standpoint, there wasn't enough room to keep parking and do protected bike lanes. And so we were kind of in a trade-off sort of situation that became pretty, people had a lot of opinions about it, I guess I'll say it that way. And then also we asked for a lot of input. We got a lot of input on Tejon, and people wanted us to look at other options. So this graphic here shows Tejon in purple, which was kind of our original thing we're looking at. And then a couple other options that came up from the community, Shoshone and Cuivas Street. Shoshone and Cuivas are 1 block and 2 blocks to the east, respectively, of Tejon. They're lower volume, lower speed kind of streets. They're very neighborhood streets. And so our charge was to collect data on those, kind of look at challenges with north-south connectivity. For instance, 38th Avenue is challenging to get across on Shoshone, but Cuivas has a signal, things like that. So we're starting to look at that. We've collected traffic data. We're investigating options still, I guess. And really let's see what my next slide is. Yep. The punchline is we really don't have anything to share about decisions or sort of what recommendation we're going to make here yet, other than that we're still evaluating and we're still listening. The next steps, one thing we did hear loud and clear from the neighborhood and from the businesses were that they didn't feel like we had a deep enough understanding of how Tejon works, how the curbside uses work, how that interfaces with the residential and the retail and the commercial and the restaurants. And so we took that to heart. We spoke with Dottie Curbside and Parking. So Scott Burton over there, I don't know if you know Scott, and they agreed to kind of lead what they call a curbside access plan along Tejon. And the purpose of that, I'll get into in a second, but that's really our next step, is to do this curbside access plan so we can take the information we learned from that and more fully understand what's going on. I thought I saw a hand go up. Trupti.
Yeah, on this curbside access plan, I talked to Scott because I just wasn't sure what it was, and he said it's going to go up to 41st, I think, as on Tejon. It's not going to go above 41st. The traffic study basically.
So he and I spoke at length about the study. I gave him a lot of my insight into Tejon from what we learned. And I told him there is a node like 40th to 42nd for sure. Yeah. We got a lot of comments on that I was hoping he'd include. And he was saying, yep, we're gonna consider including that. I'm starting my process. So he was open to the boundaries. I don't know when you spoke with him, but
it was like
they were definitely
after. It was right after the scan call.
They were focused on 32nd to 38th at first.
Right.
And I suggested extending it at least up to 42nd. you know, to kind of get that core up there where the conflict center is and the law offices and everything.
Right. But we also have, you
Yeah.
know, we also have 44th and Tejon, kind of also another area, you know, well, at least Monkey Barrel's on there and the
Mhm.
park's on there. I don't know if if that would be considered on another node, if we should go as far up as 44th.
Yeah, so I think that's up for discussion. I pointed that up to Scott too. So I'm going to get into it in a second, but just as a preview. So their kickoff for they have a stakeholder working group for this effort that's comprised of folks that Council District 1 office kind of suggested, plus folks I asked. I said, hey, reach out to these folks too. They've been really interested. They start next Tuesday evening, and I think that's the first question he'll ask. Is, are these boundaries right? Do we need to include more things? And do we have the right people? So are you going to be involved with that, Trupti? You're pretty busy.
I am not. No, I am not. And that's okay. If there's other folks on there, they should be on there.
Okay, Paige, go ahead.
Yeah, and one item I wanted to add, so the curbside access plan isn't just for Tejon, it's really for the whole area. And it's really to understand how, you know, people use the curbside in all of Highlands essentially. So, you know, I know he wants to make sure he's not doing too big of area
Right.
that therefore you can't really make the changes that you need to, or you can't really study it effectively. So, you know, he's balancing, you know, the need to understand curbside use on Tejon with the needs of the rest of the area. So I just want to add
Gotcha.
that.
Thanks, Paige. I do have a few slides about it I can go through briefly, and then I can come back if there's more detailed questions. But so yeah, just like she said, it's an area-wide plan. I kind of put down here that this is what, at the very last bullet there, what the boundaries he was considering and expanding. I know they'll talk about that. It's really a neighborhood-based decision-making process, right? So that's kind of one of his things. Why are they needed? A lot of the things have to do with, we have a changing city, right? So different things change and move, things develop. We have different mobility and transportation goals. So Scott's trying to capture all that and then encompass it in a what he describes as an action-oriented plan. And that's kind of part of this slide here. So this is like a general anticipated schedule. It's a 9 to 12 month process that's starting in mid-April, right? So probably by the end of this year, the first 9 months are really about gathering all the data and information, having the discussions. And then they spend a few months coming up with real detailed curbside plans for like where should the loading zones be? Should we have 5-minute parking, 10-minute parking, time restricted, general? Like he's going to go through all that with micro mobility parking and different tools that he's got in his toolbox to talk with everyone. And at the end of that, they will implement, right? So it is not a planning process that goes and sits on a shelf. In 12 months from now, curbside changes will be happening. And so my main point about that is, if you know folks that you think should be involved, we should get them in touch with Scott, because this will affect everyone in the neighborhood in a real way quickly. So then, yeah, I kind of previewed this, but the expected outcomes, you know, they're trying to balance and be flexible, maximize the on-street parking supply, but while accommodating multiple transportation options and support the city's transportation goals. So that's what the curbside access plan is about. Our next steps is we're going to continue that installation, just like I showed on the map in that kind of second overview slide of the area. We are going to be, I don't know, we're not really like a voting member or anything, but we're going to be listening in to the CAP process so we can learn more and be a part of that. We do have an important thing I wanted to get across to this group, and that we will provide more information on. We are going to have a public meeting on May 18th via Zoom from 6 to 7. We sent out a blast email to a large group of people yesterday. Trupti, I hope you got that. I know you were on the list for sure. And I don't know if everybody else, but if you want to be added, we can add you.
Hey, Chris, can I make one request? I try to share this stuff with the community, and on most of our platforms, if it's not in JPEG, you know, it becomes a problem. So if you guys send stuff to me so I can, you know, broadcast it, and if it's a JPEG, so if you can send that to me in JPEG, I'll put it out.
That is awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping, Trupti. So we'll have the email thing, but we're developing kind of a social media package, right?
Okay,
So like
perfect.
those simple like images that you can share out. I try to make it easy on you. We'll have those, I think by May 3rd was the goal to
Okay.
have those to share with you. We didn't want to do them too far ahead of time, right? Because people forget. But May 3rd, we'll have those to you, Trupti, for sure.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. The other thing, there are some things that are interesting in the area that you might want to check out. I don't know if you've been up North SUNI yet, but that get implemented, and it has some interesting, north of 50th has a couple pinch points and different things. Those are interesting examples of, some things you might see on, say, 40th and 41st and those kind of things for traffic calming. So just a good to visualize in real space. Yeah, and help us promote. And so this is how to stay engaged. And Bobby, you're running the meeting, right? Is that right, Bobby?
That is correct.
Great, I have your face to the name right. So I sent this as a PDF to you yesterday. I hope you got it, this presentation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can share that.
Yeah, and it was about, I think, 800 kilobytes. I mean, it was still kind of big. It wasn't like tons of megs. But this slide, you can grab that info if people ask you. This is the best way to get in touch with us and chat. And then on the website, if you scroll down a little and go right below the map, you'll see a link to sign up for office hours. That's a really effective way for the community to get one-on-one time with staff and make that happen. So that's it. I'm going to stop sharing and I can pull it back up again if people have specific questions.
All right. Any questions for Chris or Paige?
I have one just on Tejon. What is the timeline? I may have asked you that. I can't remember if you guys had an approximate timeline on when that decision will be made about
Yeah,
which way you're going.
Great question. So we do not have a timeline just yet. We know that we want to finish the CAP process before we kind of move forward and finish our evaluation of the alternatives. So, I would say, I don't know, next year sometime, we'd probably be talking in more detail about it. But I know there wasn't a lot of urgency right now. Or let's really figure this out in the next 9 months. I think we really want to be thoughtful. I think that's where we're at.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Awesome. Well, I just want to say to everybody, thank you so much for giving us your time tonight. Really appreciate it. Paige and I, we really like talking to everybody, and more questions are better. But if you don't have any, we're super great. Feel free to reach out anytime.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Paige and Chris. We'll be sure to share that information with our group as we kind of go along here.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along here. So we're ahead of schedule, unusually for us. Looking at the participants here, do we have anyone from Sophiam Development with us? No, I don't believe so. So, okay, I'll go ahead and keep going on in new business then. And then if we have someone roll in, we'll go back to the final review items. So we're kind of bumping around here, but we're on item 5.2 on the agenda. So I see Mr. Piddleco here, as well as Mr. Taylor. So the community came to us and asked to kind of discuss a project ongoing over on West 44th Avenue. We have quite a bit of time here, so I guess I'll give you, Mr. Piddleco, I don't know how long you wanted to talk or if you had any visuals to share. We have quite a few kind of background information, things linked into the agenda, but the floor is basically yours for 10 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Bobby. I honestly don't think this is going to take that much time. I apologize in advance, but I was a little mistaken on what I was understanding the project to be. I had talked to Todd, and my main concerns about the project were basically relating to the potential for a zoning code violation. I will admit that I was selfishly most concerned about whether or not the upper story rear setback was being violated. I thought it was, but I have since received clarification both from Todd and from the city that it is not. While the building itself is technically, I think a little over 27 feet. It is not 27 feet above the base plane, so that was my mistake. You know, while I don't love it, I will say that it's you know, it's not against the zoning code, so it's not something I'm going to complain about. So I think the only remaining thing is that I think Todd is requiring a variance or requesting a variance from the Board of Adjustments on some setbacks on the side alleys of his property. And, you know, I guess at this point, there may be some concern there, but to me, I'm just kind of interested in if the community has anything. And I guess, you know, it'd help to hear from Todd on what his vision is and the reasons for that before, you know, going forward. So again, I apologize for maybe jumping the gun a little bit, but I do appreciate the chance to at least discuss this with the community. So that's really all I have, I guess.
Okay, Mr. Taylor, did you want to speak?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I'm not sure. I'm just trying to figure out to see if I can get the visuals up. So if you just give me 1 second.
If you would like to share your screen, I'll stop sharing here, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. So yeah, if you give me a second, I'm not a Zoom person, so just give me 1 second if I can find it. What I wanted to show you, and I think, let's see if this comes up. And okay, so so just to give you a little background, I actually grew up in North Denver. I lived in Sunnyside. I lived right up 45th and Elliott. Went to grade school at Holy Family Grade School. Went to Regis High School. I've actually owned this property since '98, so 24 years. So I'm somebody that's from the neighborhood, and I understand concerns about development and things of that nature, but I'm also somebody that believes in progress, and I think this is progress for the neighborhood. And as the property currently is zoned, it's zoned for a project that we could build 3 stories. We can build 17 townhomes, 25,000 square feet of space. So when we did our initial conceptual drawings, my architect sent these over, and it had the 17. This one has 16, but we made them a little bit smaller, so there's actually 17. But it had 17.
Mr. Taylor, I don't want. Sorry to interrupt you, but you're not sharing anything at the moment. We do have the site development plan here. If you'd like me to share that.
Oh yeah, I don't know why. I'm not.
Okay. Yeah, give me 1 second.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, let me see if I get back on your. Hold on a second, because I'm not on your. Okay, yeah, I'm not seeing what you put up for some reason. But anyway, I can still. Oh, it's in the background. I see. So as the property currently is constructed, we could build 17 townhomes, just under 25,000 square foot of space, and have a 1-car garage. When I looked at that, I went to my architect and I'm like, you know, is it possible to have a 2-car garage? Because, you know, parking in a neighborhood is always an issue. And that's where he said you can still do 17 townhomes. You can still do just under 25,000 square feet of space. And if you do a 2-car, we'd have to go to the Board of Adjustments because of the setbacks on the 3rd story. by the Denver code. And what happens is in this project, I'm not an architect, and he's actually going to be on, but he's going to be on in about 10 minutes. He thought we were going to go a little later, and he can explain it better than I can. But what happens is this project is unique to a lot of projects in that there's alleys on 3 sides of the project. So you have 44th in front, and then you have alleys going both down both sides, and going down the rear of the project as well. So what we're asking for, what can currently be built is going to be in the same space, the same envelope, the same amount of square footage. What we're looking for is to actually add a second car garage. And to do that, then we need a little bit more room on the 3rd level. We're already building a 3rd level. So that's kind of what we're talking about. And that's what we're proposing. And that's why we're going to the Board of Adjustments.
Trupti, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Todd. Thank you for sharing and being on here tonight. Regarding the variance to the Board of Adjustments, that has not been filed yet, correct? Or has it?
You know what? I believe it has, because we have a hearing date.
Okay.
It has been filed.
Okay, because I don't recall seeing that in and this could be my mistake. The one I saw specifically was that there was a citation, there was a violation, and you were appealing that particular thing, which is actually not related to the setback. So maybe how long ago did you file it? Maybe it's just hasn't worked through the system. You said you got a hearing date though.
We definitely have a hearing date. And the hearing date's in the next, I think it's in the next 30 days, maybe first week of May 4th, something like that.
Okay.
I don't know any violations that you'd be talking about, because there shouldn't be any violations on the project. So I'm not sure if you're talking about this project or maybe have it confused with another one.
Okay, yeah, and I'll double check that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'll go look for that, because normally the RNO gets a notification of all of these types of things, so that's why I hadn't seen it. So
Yeah. No, there's no violations on the property as it sits. There definitely is a Board of Adjustment hearing, and I know it's in the first week of May, I believe.
okay,
And I'm not an architect, and I don't know, I sit down with him, and any technical questions he can answer, and tell you exactly the ins and outs. I know we're dedicating 2 feet to the alley on both sides, and improving the alley. And again, for me, the project's going to happen one way or the other. It's already currently zoned, and we could build the project with the 17 townhomes, 25,000 roughly square feet, and a 1-car garage. Or we go to a hearing, go to the Board of Adjustments, and do a similar project, similar square footage, similar number of townhomes, but we have 2 cars. And for me, 34 parking spaces would be a lot better for the neighborhood than 17 parking spaces. So that's kind of how I see it. And that's why we're going down the road. I mean, it's always more time, more money, going to hearings and asking for different things. But anyway, that's what we're proposing.
Mr. Pedalco or Mr. Taylor, anything else before we open it up to questions from the group?
That's
for me,
it
no.
from my side.
Okay, any questions, comments from the committee here or members of the public? Tripty or Rod, go ahead.
Oh, I just had a question for you, Todd. I'm looking through the plans here, and it looks like there's 15 units that have 2-car garage and 2 that still have just a 1-car garage in the plans. Is this an older set of plans?
You know what? Maybe that could be the latest. We've had so many revisions. we had, instead of putting a sewer through the alley, we ended up shrinking the buildings down. And so it is possible that the latest set has 1-car garages still. And
Oh,
so
okay,
that is possible. Yeah.
Okay, and my second question, I know your architect can probably answer this a little better because it's more of a technical detail.
Yeah.
What exactly was it with the third floor that you guys were requesting of amendment for or variance for? How was the third floor related to the 2-car garages on the first floor? And what portion of the third floors was not meeting with I'm assuming a bulk plane or a height restriction or a setback?
So that is 100% a question that he could answer, and I don't. I'll give you my explanation, and I wish he was on because he could clarify it to the T. And so I don't. It has. So either way, there's going to be.
I see that Mr. Marquez just walked in. Is that your attorney, or not your attorney, your architect, Todd?
I'm sorry, who's that?
Dave Marquez, I believe.
Oh,
that was
yes.
He's in the room now. I don't know if he's available to speak.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, Dave, it's Todd. There's a gentleman in here that has a question, and you'd be the one to explain it. If he's connected.
Rod, could you just repeat that question for Mr. Marquez?
Yeah, is he on?
He is, yes.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so Todd had indicated that there was, in order to get the 2-car garages and at least 15 of the units, that there was some adjustments that you guys were requesting that had to do with the third floor. And I was assuming it had to do with the bulk plane or setbacks and those sort of things. And I was looking through the elevations and I wasn't quite sure where there was a conflict that you were actually asking for the variance. So if you could clarify that, please.
Maybe we got him.
Dave, I see you're in the room. I don't know if you've stepped away from your computer, but that was a question for you. Okay, so maybe we'll come back to Mr. Marquez when he gets back to his computer.
Okay.
But go ahead there, Rod and Todd, if you had any other kind of questions.
Oh, no, I was just trying to get my head around like where the actual
So I think what it is, and again, he really has to be able, the one to tell you. But what happens is if we gain a variance, which is alley space, the way that the city usually if you're on a development, you're actually backing up to somebody's property. In this case, we have alleys on all 3 sides, but what happened is, so we kind of already have that buffer. And if we were backing up to somebody's property, once you get to the 3rd story, your setback from the 3rd story makes it extremely tight where it's almost unusable space there. So if we want to if we want the space, the similar space that I can build with the way it sits, if I do a 2-car, we got to get that variance, and we already have that buffer in the alley. But the way that the code reads, it's not taking an effect to the alley the way they're calculating it. And again, he's an expert, and that's I'm probably not explaining it correctly, so I'm
So it must have something to do with the rear. On the drawings, it doesn't indicate that there's an encroachment into the setback. So unless he's already drawn in the amended setback or bulk plane, I'm not quite understanding where the encroachment would be that we're being asked to look at. So we can move on, and come back.
And I'm sorry, I wish I could, like I said, that question is definitely above my scope.
Okay, Trupti, did you have another comment there? Your hand is raised.
Sorry about that. A couple of things. I mean, I'm just trying to understand this project, and obviously the 2 cars versus 1. Definitely need more housing. But with the whole climate and resiliency, I think the city and everyone's trying to get people out of cars. I mean, so there's that, right? As far as just the need for 2 cars or the space or whatever, there's that. And then, and my question to you, Todd, was, did you consider leaving retail space in the front? Because one of the things, at least as for neighborhoods and, activation and being able to walk to places, losing our commercial spaces is something that kind of concerns me. We're losing another spot on 44th and Tejon in a similar situation. But, did you consider doing that?
We looked at the project in quite a few different fashions, and unfortunately, the way the state taxes commercial property, and especially smaller spaces, like right now, my property taxes are almost 40,000 on the property. And by the time you get the insurance, it doesn't even make it economically feasible unless you charge exorbitant rent and then you fix up a place. So we could do that. We did look at it, and again, you got to have adequate parking for it, or the calculations really just don't work the way the city, they tax commercial at 29%, and it makes it extremely difficult to have small shop spaces, which is really unfortunate. So I looked at it a lot of different ways, and it was either doing a condo project with commercial up front, or doing a townhome project where there's no HOA, there's separate units. So yeah, I think just economically feasible for the project. This is why we had to go this way.
Oh, thank you.
So I apologize. This is Dave. I'm actually on the line here. I was having some microphone issues. I could hear all you, but I couldn't talk. So
Hey, did we want to return to that separate question about the setback on the 3rd floor, Rod?
Sure. Hi, Dave.
Hi.
Hey, so yeah,
So
I had a
heard
question. I just had a question. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I heard. So if you want to go to page 2, 4, 5, 6, and I can walk you through it. So right here. So you had some questions about setbacks on the alleys.
Well, yeah, well, I was basically, I didn't understand where you guys were asking for a variance on the project.
So basically, we're asking for a variance on the upper story setback for the project. So
Okay.
Currently, even though there's an alley on each side, the city zoning code, this is a unique situation where we have alley abutting 3 sides, and we're asking the zoning department to consider those side alleys actual alleys in regards to setbacks, but they're not. They're considering them side interior setbacks, which is very unusual. So based on the fact that there are residential districts on each side, there's a larger upper story setback for the project. We still have 3 stories. It's just the upper story setback increases, even though we're abutting an alley. So really, we're just asking for the city to consider those alleys and the setbacks be associated with alleys. We'd still have upper story setbacks. It just wouldn't be as significant.
Okay.
And that allows us, again, to add a secondary garage, because then we would have more space on the 3rd story.
Can I jump
Correct.
into the question? I'm very interested. Sorry, I'm Naomi. I don't think we've met. I work for Councilman Sandoval, and I do development and planning stuff from the office. And I was just interested to hear what was the rationale from the city. I'm sure you went back and forth with them a fair amount. What was the rationale for treating those side alleys as side interior lot lines?
I didn't get a direct answer. What I got is there's one predominant alley that's at the rear, and they were not going to consider the two side as alleys. They were going to consider them as side interior.
That's really interesting. I don't know. Would you, Todd or anyone be willing to forward me that correspondence? I just never encountered that determination before, and it's good to know for our references. We see development continuing if that's a pattern that the city is going to be asking.
Well, I think,
Sure.
and I think
So-
it's, I'm sorry, excuse me. I think it's extremely unusual because there's not many H alleys left in Denver. So when they revamped the guidelines and did all the zoning, I don't think they put all the situations into those, taking all those factors into account. So I haven't read it. I'm not a technical guy, but I think it's probably some of those areas that get lost in the mix. And I think this is a case where obviously there's two alleys, you have the buffers, we can go 3 stories. So I'm just trying, again, to make the project better, adding more parking. Because I'm doing the same amount of units and roughly the same amount of square footage, so.
Yeah, and then this did go through Bridget Rossbaugh, which you'll know, and she
Yep.
sent it to Chris and Leah, and that was the determination, which is the only way we could proceed is to go ahead and submit and then through Board of Adjustments.
Interesting. All right, I might look into that. It's, these H alleys, as you mentioned, probably in all of the city, it's Sunnyside and maybe, Highland that has these situations. So,
Well, I was just wondering, are they real city alleys? Like I live just a couple blocks to the south of this, or actually, yeah. And we have an H alley in ours. And one of the alleys is a city alley, the one adjacent to my property, but the other alley in the block is actually just an easement, and the properties go to the middle center line of the alley. And so the only way you know that nowadays is when they paved all the alleys over here. Ours got paved and that one is still gravel because it's not technically a city alley. But the trash truck will still come down it. So that's an unusual thing too. So anyway, so there's a lot of weird little idiosyncrasies. Dave, I was just wondering, I was looking at the say front elevation or the rear, the south elevation of the project, and I don't see where like the bulk plane cuts into the upper story set. I guess I do. Okay, so it's a 15-foot setback that you guys are requesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then what
20,
I'm sorry, I haven't
25 foot.
What and
25
it's a 25 foot is the standard.
Yes.
Okay,
For
so
a
you're
side
requesting,
interior.
yeah, so you're requesting a 10-foot variance on that 3rd story setback.
Yeah, we're requesting that we consider it an alley upper story setback rather than a side interior. So
Right.
it would be the same as if there was another lot right there instead of an alley. And we have gone through concept and through initial SDP review. So those are city right-of-way alleys, and we've
Okay.
had to dedicate to widen our portion on the alleys.
Yeah, I totally get it, because you're not directly adjacent to a property right on the property line. So, and you still are conforming to this 5-foot setback. So I can understand the rationale.
Yeah, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Marquez, I wanted to kind of say something, and then I think Troopty had a hand up. I would just echo what Troopty has already said, which is, everything that we seem to be going to in design planning is for a decreased use of cars and attempting to make it more difficult to use a car in the city and county of Denver. And considering this is a pretty dense urban environment type of planning, I would urge you to reconsider and just go with the 1 car per unit design plan. The other thing I want to say is, similar to what Ms. or Troopty said, was we hear all the time from members in our community about how irritated they are that our commercial spaces, especially for small businesses, are being torn down and redeveloped as a triplex, a sixplex townhomes, which is exactly what's occurring here. And I'd also say that we're in a ongoing kind of discussion and dispute, if you will, with city planning that we don't think they're properly interpreting the zoning code for a new SU, what is this, 2, requires activation of the street. And when one is moving from a commercial space to a residential space, that's inherently a deactivation of the street. So we don't really think that complies with zoning code. Now, city planning, says something different, but that's kind of an ongoing discussion with them. And, to be perfectly frank, there's not every member of this committee hears every single day from members of this community about how irritated they are that building after building is being torn down and being replaced with extremely ugly triplexes, sixplexes, townhomes. No, don't get me wrong. Everybody here is for redevelopment. Everybody here is for denser redevelopment. But we would really like it to be done well, respecting the character of the neighborhood, using brick, high quality materials. But this project seems to be poorly thought out. I would, admonish Mr. Marquez for a pretty poor design concept here of what is basically jail cells facing each other, with a garage being the activation towards the alleyway. But that's just my personal opinion. Ms. Suthara, you had a hand up. Go ahead.
No, at first I wanted to thank Todd because, the issue of this, the 29%, tax on commercial space, I now understand why, it doesn't leave you a lot of choices. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. That helps me understand a piece of it. So that's a different fight to have with the, the city about if you want this, start changing some of these other pieces. On that back alley, I mean, both myself and Matthew, Bobby have looked over in that area, and that alley, and Rod, if you get a chance, I mean, it's just a dirt pit, kind of like it's just a mounds of dirt. Rob, I didn't know whether you wanted to speak towards it because originally you had contacted us about vacating that alley initially, which obviously changes all of this stuff, in terms of the setback piece would become more important if this alley was actually vacated. Is that,
to be clear, we're talking about the south alley and the H cross alley, not the other ones.
Not the side ones. It's that, yes, exactly, that H one. But it's just a mess. So, Rod, unlike yours where it's paved or gravel, this is just mounds of dirt and it's really ugly. But Rob, if you can speak to like that alley and whether you and your neighbor next to you are still considering that action, because that does change the issue of why a setback would still be required.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. I am still very interested in having the city vacate that cross alley. I've talked to my neighbor; he is also interested, and I've talked to Todd, and he seems willing to go forward with that as well. I think Todd can speak for himself, obviously, but I think my understanding is basically he'd like to get this plan finalized and in motion before going down that road. To my understanding, as I admitted in the beginning, I'm clearly no expert at the zoning code, but to my understanding, the vacation of that alley won't change anything from a zoning code perspective because it would be the rear setback is basically a difference of 10 feet. The upper story rear setback is a difference of 10 feet, depending on the alley, and the alley's 20 feet wide. So Todd would gain 10 feet of property. I would gain my 10 feet of property, and the building space would be the exact same. But yeah, that is definitely something I'm still interested in doing. I think that, I've spoken to Councilwoman Sandoval, and she at least is tentatively on board, assuming that everybody else in the area is also willing to do so. So I will say that it's been very hard to get anybody to respond to me when I'm asking for estimates on doing so. in terms of all the work that has to be done. But yeah, it would definitely be something of interest to me still.
And I'd like to speak on that as well. Yeah, I think that the alley needs to be improved, and so whether we got it vacated, not vacated, I would go to the city and say, listen, I will pave it, I will clean it up, but it definitely is it's definitely an eyesore, and the way it sits, I'm happy to help with a vacation. Anything to clean it up back there would be amazing. So I only have so much time in my life and so many like battles, and like it's everything you try to do that seems like a hurdle. And so I gotta just stick with this. As soon as this gets to the next level where I got more time, then I'd be happy to sit down. And I've had some nice conversations with Rob. I'd be happy to partner with him. And I did talk to the other neighbor and said, listen, if we can get together, you know, I'm happy to do whatever to, again, make this project better, make the alley better. So yeah, I'm for that.
And actually, maybe just one last question. It's probably obvious, or at least it probably is. These are all going to be for sale, not rental, correct?
That is the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any last minute comments here before we move on to our next agenda item, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Fiddlecow?
Really quick, I'd just like to reiterate, you know, your thoughts as well about, you know, how important 44th is for Sunnyside. And, you know, without getting into, you know, aesthetics, just sheer functionality. You know, Trupti talked about the brick, you know, quality materials. Bobby talked about the engaging the street, and, you know, on any of the streets in our neighborhood, this is the one where it's one of the most critical, I think. And I would really like to see a project. I get it. I did not know about the tax issue, and I'm going to look in and learn more about that, because that's disincentivizing what is really something I think is of value to our community and our neighborhood, especially along 44th. And I really don't want to lose that street to some things that I think detract from that. So I just wanted to say that about this project. I think it's not quite there for improving the future of 44th.
Mr. Hare, go ahead.
Thanks, Bobby. Todd, I guess I won't reiterate what has already been said, though I agree with it. But I do want to tie back to your opening comments. You were eloquent relative to your connection with the community and your history here. And I mean, quite frankly, we're at your mercy. And so I would ask, as others have, that you give a little bit more consideration to the impact that this development is going to have on 44th and the community. Hopefully you take the comments you've heard here into account, and we do appreciate your coming to the meeting and explaining and presenting the situation. I'm a business owner in Sunnyside, commercial business owner, and I don't own the building, but with triple net leasing, I pay the taxes, and the tax situation that Mr. Taylor is describing is likely going to cause me to vacate Sunnyside 4 years from now. It's almost impossible, and it's it's just the way it is. So that part of his commentary I can very much vouch for. Thanks.
And you know, I actually have a last comment, and maybe this is kind of just a little you know, color about why 44th is important, not just because obviously it's already important and it's a corridor and it's one of our, you know, active corridors along with Tejon, at least in the interior, those are the only two. But what I wanted to share was that Sunnyside is going to explode in growth because of the amount of density that's coming around the light rail station in Inca. So we're talking thousands of more people. But beyond that, the bigger issue is also going to be that Quig Newton's going to be redeveloped. And the whole point here is that we're going to have a lot more people in our community. And I think, as we think about how to plan our community and have the spaces that the community needs, and losing these commercial places because of what we know is coming in the next 5 to 10 years, that's really the reason that I think a lot of people are concerned about that. So if you didn't know, about the growth that is coming to Sunnyside in terms of the thousands of new units, planned along the light rail and Quig Newton, our DHA property, which is like 25 acres, and they will triple, but they're willing to more than triple the volume they have today. So these are the reasons I think people are really concerned about saving some of the, commercial spaces, because when they're gone, they're gone. At least that's a reason, Todd. It's not because
Sure.
we are, we want you to
Yeah.
lose money or
No,
anything else. I mean,
I'll tell you, I do believe in the community, and that, we took a strong look, but, I've had the building, like I said, 24 years, and for probably I lost money on the building for, I can't even tell you how many years. And every time you get a tenant in there, they leave, and my leases are cheaper than most of the leases out there, and it's not even economically feasible. And the amount of money, and I'm not even a money person. I like money, and I'm not, but
we all do.
but really the crime of it is, if you truly want Sunnyside to thrive and you want commercial to thrive, the cities need to understand, 29% on a Class C building it's not feasible. It doesn't work. And no matter how much money I put in that building, it's all lost money, because if I fix it up, I can't get renters in to afford to pay the rent. And it is unfortunate, but that's someone that, either needs to create special districts that incentivize and say, okay, if we need to keep this, then as a city, we need to somehow, make programs available. They have some on, 38, they have some in other ones. 44th has never done that. And that is one of the biggest crimes of why things are going away as well. But it's just not economically feasible, and it is a shame. So I understand the sentiment for sure.
Todd, the other thing I want to share with you is that we're in the middle of a neighborhood planning initiative, right? The last one was from 1992, and we've had various focus groups. We've been talking about the industrial area and what's going to happen there, but we also talked to all of our businesses, and the challenges you're talking about of a business owner and having commercial space, it's kind of echoed. You're bringing up some topics, and I literally am offended at, hearing about Bill having to leave. I've heard this from other people, having to leave Sunnyside and because it's too expensive to operate here. So, I would spend my time and energy to fight for this personally. And to your point about the programs and whatever, we've had the Department of Economic Affairs, I'm probably, it's the wrong name, it's DITO, but we're talking to them about these types of things. Like you were just talking about a program, do something with the corridor, incentivize people to stay and to because what sandwich shop can afford that kind of thing, right? There no small business, can really afford that, I guess, unless they're a pot shop, maybe they can afford it. But I'm with you on this, and it is a crime. And Naomi, how do we elevate this? I'm obviously going to go send all of this information that we're talking about to our NPI partners right now, the planning initiative partners who are taking feedback and input. And Todd, I'm going to share some, either surveys and information and meetings that are upcoming with you, because I think they need to hear this from you, about how you would do the right thing if the incentives were, or disincentives weren't there, frankly. So I'll share some of the meetings and to make sure that, you know, they hear from you. Because what we did today, I think they need to hear.
Yeah, and I wish I had good things to say, but it is a really big problem. And I'm very glad, Todd, that you're here and that Tripty's, you know, gonna link up with you with the neighbor planning initiative, because it is so important to engage. Like this is a huge issue. And as you yourself mentioned, it's at the state level, unfortunately, with property taxes. But there certainly are things that the city can do and can advocate for and put into the neighborhood planning initiative about maybe trying to balance out some of the what makes it really, really tough to keep commercial buildings, especially legacy commercial buildings. So I know Councilman Sandoval is very much of the same mind.
Great.
And
Hey,
Rob,
folks,
thanks for bringing this up. Thanks for bringing this to our attention, because Todd, in a situation like this where you're not going for a rezone, I mean, you are going for a board of adjustment. We would have heard about it then, but typically, you know, when someone's not getting a rezone and you're doing stuff by right, you know, the RNO doesn't always get, you know, doesn't get an opportunity to get involved. So thanks, Rob, you know, for even identifying this project, and Todd and Dave for coming and sharing it with us.
Sure. Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Okay, we got to keep moving along. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Pittelkov, Mr. Marquez, for your time. If anyone has any questions, just let us know and we'll follow up. I'm going to stop sharing that and then go back to our limit here.
And just, I'm sorry, one last thing. If you're welcome to, I'm not sure who has my email or whatever, but you know, you're more than welcome to share my email. If anybody has questions, concerns, I'm happy to talk to people on the phone. So I'm very open about things, and so just throwing that out there.
We will send them your way if we get those.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you again for your time.
Okay, I'm going to roll way back on my agenda to item number 3. Is there anyone going for the third time now? Is there anyone here from Sophium Development? Okay, well, I will just go into it myself then. So we've been going through multiple iterations with Mr. Billy Wang and Sophium Development on the 4475 to 4497 property on Inca for a rezone. And we have what is somewhat of a finalized good neighbor agreement here, but just considering you know, the full committee didn't really get a chance to discuss it in executive session last week. And I still kind of...
Yes.
Who's that speaking? Nobody?
Mistake.
Okay, so I'm just gonna invite a few people. So anyway, considering all that, I guess I'll just open it up for discussion before I go ahead and make a motion. Did any member of the committee kind of look at that good neighbor agreement or have any comments on that project?
Hey, it's Tripty. So the only thing is, like, you know, we got a comment from Niles, who has negotiated a different agreement, a similar, a GNA, a memorandum of understanding with Billy Wang on a prior project from 2017. I think the executive committee should look at both of those things side by side and figure out whether, you know, I mean, the comments from Niles were kind of too soft on them, and, you know, and maybe he's right. But I'm wondering if we go back and review that and make sure it is, you know, it's somewhat in line with what was on the other one, if it makes sense. So it's something that he is familiar with as well, but just if there's any pieces in there that maybe we're not covering that we could cover.
Anybody else?
We just got it today, like just a few minutes ago. So
yes,
no one's got a chance to look at it.
I guess my comments are, you know, we've gotten certain concessions from Billy, but, you know, I would like to go back and see this other stuff we've done on a previous property. And just considering this is a property on Inca, really close to the light rail station, I think we could really go for a little bit more on some of the design aspects of trying to reflect a, industrial district that should display something better than stucco and kind of the design concept as it is. And also kind of maybe taking a broader consideration of commercial spaces, how we're incorporating commercial spaces or shared spaces, in this denser area. So anyway, any other comments?
I still have another comment on the commercial spaces pieces. So when we were talking to the NPI folks and the industrial group folks, and we talked about, I asked specifically, if we model out the density, how much commercial space do we need to have the walkable neighborhood, right? How much commercial space would we need to be able to, have the services so that you don't have to jump in your car, which is, what everybody wants. So, but they had no good answer, like not even at all. So I'd like to go back and push the city or, the staff or whoever to get some guidance on if we are going to have 10,000 more people. I don't know what the number is, but we can figure some of that out. If we're going to have that many more people, how much commercial space would be necessary to have these green, connected, walkable streets, 15-minute neighborhoods, all the stuff that sounds really good on paper and everybody wants and says, but if we don't think about that now, and that opportunity again is lost, we don't have it. So back to, I think we need some guidance. And Naomi, is this something that you know where we could find? So if we project X number of people, how much commercial space would be needed to support some of these other initiatives that are about walking to places and not leaving the neighborhood, having the services you need? What does that look like?
Chipty, that is a really good question. I don't know.
No, nobody there had an answer either.
And no, but I am like, that is a really good question. And I want to look into that now, because I'm sure people have studied that. I'm sure there's urban planning research on, I know there's retail research on it, because they won't go into locations until they have a certain amount of density and things like that. So there's definitely going to be stuff out there,
Right.
but I'm not sure. I would actually, honestly, not to, pass the responsibility on, but I would ask it from our NPI consultants.
No, absolutely. So
Yeah.
if you will help me, push that, get a response. And then for the GNAs in general, right? Like one of the things that we're kind of struggling with now is because we haven't done very many of these types of things, we don't have that many, we're still going, we're still like, maybe we don't have those broader categories of things. I know we've talked about things like on the climate and electrical, we've talked about the design and the look. This commercial space is like one more kind of, attribute that we want to get our arms around, and we want to start requesting those things. But I don't know, there might be a few other things, but I really would love to get closer, and this is for the executive committee, get closer to that GNA template that is specific to one area versus a 44th, if we were going to go down that route. But, and I don't know, Naomi, do you have other thoughts on like the kinds of attributes? And Rod, we've kind of talked about some of this thing saying we need these broad guardrails that are important, that kind of align with the vision, the future, and all of those other things. But yeah, I just encourage our executive committee to kind of get moving on, having something more of a template, because I think I don't want to have different stuff with everybody, right? And we're still kind of testing, well, how much concession should we be asking for? But it's not about us just wanting something for nothing. It's about what's important, right? And Naomi, do you have any ideas of what else in terms of those? Maybe we should invite you to the next, executive committee when we're talking specifically about like those larger attributes that are important. But like at the top of your head, do you have others that, as we consider the industrial area, what should we be thinking about negotiating with developers as they come to us?
Yeah, I'll have to think about that one a little bit, but I would love to have a session to brainstorm some of that stuff.
Rod, were you going to say something?
No, sorry. When Trukey called my name, I was distracted and I was looking at the tax code and why it's so for anybody just Google the Gallagher amendment, and that's what's screwing this over for us. So
yes.
and sorry, not to take us back, but it looks like that will continue as more, basically this project is a perfect example of what's wrong with it, is because people are developing more residential properties. There's a part of that act that says residential can only be 45% of the revenue and commercial must be 55%. So the fewer commercial properties in relation to residential properties there are, at some point, commercial taxes will exponentially go through the roof, because to maintain that 45-55% ratio, the more residential properties are built, the remaining commercial properties have to pick up the 55% of that tax rate.
Oh, wow.
So eventually this will flush out, residential rates will go to zero, and one commercial property would have to take up, fifth, well, they won't go to zero, but they'll take up 55% like of all the rest of the taxes collected. So that is an unsustainable tax law that's going to collapse eventually if everybody just keeps building residential properties. So it's, I don't think it's something we can fix, obviously, but it's something that's going to have to be addressed, because it's just going to basically drive all commercial properties away everywhere.
And the state legislature there's been many attempts to change this, and I wouldn't be surprised if they continue, because as Rob pointed out, it's been a bit of a disaster as time's gone on.
Well, because residential property owners are the voters.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they are not going to vote to raise their own taxes. But being unsustainable, it's a system that will collapse eventually. Now, how long that's going to be. Like, I can't even believe that we let something like that get into a law. I mean, it's just, you can
90s.
see, huh?
It was the 90s.
Yeah, but you can see the
We need
writing
to
on the
do
wall.
some,
Like any mathematician would know that it's doomed to fail. Anyway, sorry.
I
So
want to
I have
add
some, what's
So
that?
no, go ahead, finish up.
Oh, I just was gonna say, I have some ideas on these broad terms. It's actually something I've been working on and trying to dial back down, because I don't like getting into the arguments of style and character, and architectural style. And how do you come up with something that's an objective sort of criteria in, without getting, sucked down into that subjective sort of realm of what constitutes good design. And it's actually something I've been working on. I don't know if it's a white paper, a book, or a thesis project, but I mean, I'm happy to share it with you guys. I mean, it basically comes down to 4 things that I've discovered, and it's connect, protect, provide, and nurture are the 4 things that every sort of community should be built around, whether it's the house or a block or a neighborhood or a town. And what I mean by that is that the elements of the design need to connect us together, within our communities. So the house must connect to the public realm. The block must connect us to our adjoining blocks. Our neighborhoods must connect us to our other ones. When I say protect, you have to feel like that they need to be designed in such a way that they feel like that, people are comfortable there. It's got to protect them from, whether it's, it needs to be safe, walkable, communities, protect us from, muggers and all of that stuff. So all of these little elements, and I can get into it deeper, but then the provide, this goes back to Trupti talking about the 15-minute walk and all of that. Every little scale of our communities needs to provide for us, whether it's food, shelter, clothing, or commerce. There needs to be element of that provision within any design, whether it's, your neighborhood market or whatever. People need to feel connected to where they get things that they need to sustain life. So we should say that, there should be some element of how does whether your development has like a garden in it because it provides food or something, there should be elements of provision in it. And it's very high level. It's not specific, not design oriented. And then the 4th one is nurturing. And that's really where, you get things like benches and shade and trees and things that nurture us as people, where it lets you sit and relax. And when we're talking about, you need that on your property, like your front porch, it kind of goes to that, your porch swing. And when we're talking about family developments, well, what are they doing and put in there to help those residents really, nurture being in the community, like that
Okay,
last project we
Rod,
looked, what's
Brad,
that?
I don't want to cut off your white paper here, but we're coming up on time and I do need to
Okay.
make a motion before we.
Okay, anyway, that could
But-
be the work session group. And I'm just saying those 4 things, they're very high level, but if we could define those, maybe that's some way to sort of say, hey, look, you need to show us how you're providing for these 4 things in your design. Don't tell them how to do it, just ask them to sort of meet some certain criteria.
Okay, with
Thanks, Rob.
that, I'm going to make a motion to indefinitely postpone the final review of the Good Neighbor Agreement for 4475 to 4497. Can I get a second?
I'll
Second.
Okay, so I got a second. All in, I need a roll call vote actually. So Tripti,
Yay.
Rod,
Yay,
Bill,
mute. He's muted.
and Mike.
Yay.
Bill, are you still with us?
He is there. Maybe he's playing with his cat.
He might have stepped away for a second.
The
He
cat is
moved out of the neighborhood. He was forced out by high taxes.
Okay,
I'm
well,
really bummed.
I'll-
I'm actually really offended right now about what's happening. And actually what I did, oh, sorry, go ahead. Let me finish, but I do have
For
a
the
comment.
purpose of time here, I'm going to consider Bill to have abstained or have a no vote. And with that, we are at 8 o'clock. So I want to go ahead and adjourn and kind of pick everything up next go round to be respectful of
have a
everyone's
comment.
time. Tripti,
I
yeah.
gotta make a comment because most folks might not know this, but we're gonna lose Cricket Stave, and it's because of taxes, just so you know, because he manufactures in his facility. He said manufacturing taxes are really high. Gail Lindy, the late Gail Lindy of Denver Bookbinding, was talking about the same thing, and now Bill is talking about leaving or being forced to leave. And I think
But
we need to
is
bring
that
it up.
but these are Colorado things. So where are you going that taxes are lower? Are there other
No.
places?
The manufacturing is a Denver thing. The manufacturing is a Denver thing.
Bye. Thanks, Tammy.
Bye. Yeah. So it's I just for a future, we as a executive group, we may want to think about how to get the right group of people to start having this conversation with people in charge about how do we got to preserve this stuff. So it's not a matter of requiring X, Y, and Z if they're just going to leave anyway.
Well, I just think that, quite frankly, I'm almost shocked because I had no idea tonight that was happening. And it's so counterintuitive what
Well, just
many
to clarify, Rod, we repealed the Gallagher Amendment last year for the state of Colorado. So I think the tax rate may still be 29%, but now it's not a constitutional issue. The
Oh,
legislature
okay. Sorry, because this
lower
thing is
it.
this was from like 2020, the article I was reading. So if that got repealed last year, then, well,
Yeah.
I'm going to go do some more research and find a tax person to explain it to me more because I'm not a tax guy. Because if we do have stuff that's counterintuitive to what I feel like all of us, and in large part, most of the people in the city are trying to do, it's almost like an uphill battle. Like everybody needs to be pulling the same direction. And we have developers coming to us that can't accomplish what everybody is kind of agreeing is kind of the right way to go, then that's a real problem. I mean, especially if we're trying to do stuff in certain parts of our neighborhood to encourage, mixed use development and all of that stuff.
But I think, for the Denver, I mean, there may be some tools, and like Todd was talking about, like if there's money, if there is, incentives, so there might be something, and I think Naomi throws some stuff out on chat too about it. But I think we need to be part of that solution, right? Not just be like, we want, like we really understand.
Absolutely. That's why I want to understand it more. Yeah. Cause I mean, I never complain about anything until I have some options to throw out there to help people, get to where we need to go.
I am going to put this on the NPI folks as a focus for a conversation about, well, what do we do in these type of situations? This is actually happening, So thank you. Thanks for going over a couple minutes.
Yeah. All right. Well.
Okay, motion to adjourn. I need a
Second.
motion and a second.
Oh,
Okay.
motion to adjourn.
And
Second.
second, I got a second there. Okay, all right. Thank you, everybody. We will
Thank
see
you, guys.
you.
Bye.
Hey, thank you. I
next time.
really enjoyed the conversation. I just want to tell everybody I've been listening in. It's very rich conversation tonight.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys. Have
Yeah.
a good
Thanks a
one.
lot.
Tell your
Bye.
neighbors.